Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. This is just going to be a short and sweet Sunday update on the cryptocurrency market. It's going to be our daily cryptocurrency market update, and we're really just going to be going back to basics, I guess, really going over a lot of what we've been speaking about for the past couple of months. And that is that we've really been maintaining a very cautionary stance on the cryptocurrency market. And that's come from a few things. Technically, Bitcoin on its own merit. And also, when you look at the stock market and when you look at what the Fed are doing mainly, we did say that CPI's data reveal was going to be very, very telling. And we actually had the highest inflationary print since 1981. Not a good look for markets. And we know that what the Fed are essentially already doing is damaging to markets. And it really increases dollar strength. And that's going to become even more so the case now, given the fact that inflation is continuing to persist, because it shows that the measures that not only the Fed have done so far, but are now setting out, aren't working. So that, to me, means they're going to have to get more aggressive, essentially. And, I've mentioned this countless times. I'm reading Volcker's autobiography after Jerome Powell, in his last minutes, had actually mentioned just how much admiration he had for Volcker, who basically back in the 1970s, the latter part of the 1970s, really ramped up interest rates to fight inflation. Jerome is very much in a similar situation. They aren't going to be able to get interest rates into the double digits. They're going to break the economy well before they do that and have to put the old Fed funds rates in reverse. And the reason I'm so confident about this is because when they started upping interest rates last time, it nearly crashed the repo market and subsequently led us into March 2020 before we had even heard of any news of lockdowns and all this sort of stuff. So the macro really is key to understand, because it will help you as an investor, as a trader, understand your asset class and where it's likely going from a sort of a vantage point, if that makes sense. So this is really what we're going to be talking about in this video. Monday is going to be key because the stock market will open, and there's a huge correlation still, although there may be a decoupling eventually, between Bitcoin and the stock market, the likes of the NASDAQ. I will actually, just for the sake of this video, very quickly show you that. I'll drop it down to the daily just to kind of put a benchmark of where we are. And we will bring up, what do we want? We'll just use the NASDAQ. You can see the correlation here. Bitcoin, of course, in orange, and the NASDAQ rather confusingly in green. Very, very correlated, and still very much the case. So my thinking with watching for tomorrow is if the stock market, and we'll know what the futures market is doing tonight, opens very negatively, you're looking at more downside for crypto. And going back to basics and going back to something we've been talking about for months now is this long-term regression bands for Bitcoin, and the fact that it's very likely you're coming down to the lower band, which is currently sat around about 24,000. In my opinion, there's no reason we don't get there. Also, you've got your EMA down here, and I'm expecting to see strength there. Because it's not just me looking at this. You've got a lot of big boys that will be looking at this also. It is really bleak for crypto, and naturally, we've also highlighted Bitcoin dominance, which is going up. And I mean, if you look at the likes of Phantom today, I mean, it's just an ugly, ugly story. A lot of these are actually going to round trip and go significantly lower. For somebody like myself that is already in cash, still hold crypto, but has a cash position, this is kind of what we want. We want the fear, but we don't want the sort of pain that is unfortunately, a lot of people are going to have to endure as a result of it. This isn't scaremongering or fearmongering. At the end of the day, guys, we can't control the weather, but what we can do is make sure that we're appropriately dressed for when we actually go out into whatever conditions are thrown at us. And that's what we're trying to do here. But things don't just go down in straight lines. I say that with a little bit of caution because, it's not been much upside, really. And I'll actually switch to a different chart here. Will we do FTX? No, we won't do FTX. We'll do Kraken. And I may have it already drawn on. This is a trend line that you were essentially holding. You've now broken it. You did the same thing back in this bear flag. You had a trend line that you broke. and then it sees you sort of spill to the downside. And that's really ultimately what's on the cards, in my opinion. And that would take us probably down to the 24K zone. You've really got to watch for what comes out, what the Fed's minutes are. I think this may be Thursday, Jerome is speaking, or Wednesday it could potentially be. I'll have to double check. But essentially, if he comes out and says, look, we're going to do a 75 basis point Fed fund rate hike, markets are really going to not do very well on the back end of that. And for those of you that are in my Patreon, you'll know that we were looking at the euros dollars future, and that was going to had suggested before we'd even got the CPI print that it wasn't going to be a very good one. So many little things you've got to pay attention to daily, that you can kind of correlate into your thesis on what's happening with markets, because we are exceptionally tethered whether we like it or not. And it's a very contradictory tale that I'm currently singing, because I am a crypto believer. I really do believe in the cryptocurrency space and its longevity, and I'm actually a believer in Satoshi's vision. I think that Satoshi's vision was a very pure and real one, in the sense that he created something to hedge and protect people against the fiat systems that are really manipulated and a pain point of a lot of people's lives. But right now, cash is king. The reason being is because markets are likely going down. A bit of a caution if people are looking to short the market here. You're shorting on what seems like it has had support previously. I would wait for strength to do that. And I wouldn't advise, if you don't know how to trade, if you can't tell me what a futures contract is, or you can't tell me, how to trade and how to do things, learn how to do it before you even step foot in that arena, because most traders lose money. It is a zero-sum game, trading. And what I mean by that is it's not gambling if you know what you're doing, but the odds are massively stacked against you in favor of the house, the exchanges. They win both sides of the trade in terms of make profits, and you have to be head and shoulders as a trader above the rest to make money. And all these, I don't want to use a bad word there, but I was going to, people on YouTube and Twitter that claim that they're traders, I know for a fact they're not, because they're not going to show they're losing trades. And it's not as easy as people make out, but you can learn how to do it. And if you really want to put the time and effort into it, you can actually do very well out of it, certainly at the moment. If you're to the short side and you've accurately set up and you've got a plan in place, then you may do quite well. So more downside probably likely this week. From a stock perspective, we've been saying for a long time, in fact, that the stock market is going lower, and that this was likely just a support and resistance flip. Excuse the squiggly draw. It's actually more accurately shown on the S&P, because you can see that was support. Historically, it's now acting as resistance. Very, very typical bear market trait that happens, and a very downtrendy trait, in my opinion. So we're going to see what this week brings. We'll know what the futures market does tonight, and then we're going to watch the cryptocurrency market going into Monday. It could be a real bloodbath, to be honest. That being said, again, we don't control the weather. Doesn't mean that we can't have some sort of a push up, but ultimately, you could do something like this, where you come back to this, you reject, and then you go lower, and we see those targets that we've got set out for it. We just aren't 100% sure. I'd like to see some sort of strength, but we've just not seen it. We did think crypto was probably likely Bitcoin was going to go here, and this is where we were going to look to take shorts on a deviation. But that wasn't the case. This was about as far as we got, and that is data that we can analyze and go, okay, well, this is how the market is. It's weak across the board. There's no, you haven't got really any signs of strength as of yet. And actually, we'll just take a look at the total. This is the total market for crypto. Let's do the total, because this is something we'd previously actually spoke about. Let's not do the monthly chart, because that's just way too long. But we had actually spoken about how your total, it had only just, when we last spoke about it, we were up here and we said, look, this is going down, and you're coming certainly down towards this 200 EMA or moving average on the weekly for your total before you get any kind of a real significant bounce. This is a spiller, and this is the cryptocurrency market and the market we're in. And from a stock point of view, when I look at the stock market, I really think there's a lot more reasons for it going lower than there is higher. When you look at how overvalued everything is, and I believe we're actually as overvalued in terms of the stock market, is more overvalued today than it was in the dot-com boom, at the peak of it, by the way. So we've already sold off. We're still very overvalued. Not only that, when you look from a company perspective, and remember these stocks often have companies in 90% of the cases attached to them, well, what's now going to happen to their profits? Their core commodities that they use to build their products have gone up in price. Okay, wages have gone up, so that's another cost. So their margins get smaller in terms of selling the profits. They have to up prices. We've got a demand getting killed on a consumer level because inflation is hurting everybody in the pocket. And guess what? A lot of these companies actually own significant debt, corporate debt, that has now become harder to service with the Fed funds rates going up. So they're getting hit across the board. It's just a bad environment, and understanding that is going to be key to being a successful investor, understanding the environment that we're in and basing a strategy off it accordingly. That is really all I've got for you in this video. Very quickly, people talking about recession. One thing for me is every time the European Union, not the European Union, sorry, the European Central Bank up interest rates, we're in a recession. That's when you can start calling a recession. They're doing that in July, next month. You know, that is very much, this is where we're at, you know, and there's always people that go, well, markets have priced it in. Well, okay, they may have, but they've priced in what we've been told. They've not priced in what is actually happening. The reason that we had said that, look, CPI, if it comes out lower, we're calling BS, is because we were watching the commodity prices. They all put in new highs. So we knew that CPI was going to be damaging coming out and really drive the Fed's mandate. And that's what we're seeing. Good news is with all this, guys, is you're going to get the opportunity to accumulate cheap crypto ready for a new bull. And there is some serious money to be made there. And hopefully in the group that I've got going, we can nail that. For anybody that's interested in the group, check out my Patreon. There's also a video on my YouTube channel called Welcome to My Patreon for anybody that's interested. It's always good to know what you're essentially going to be taking part in. That is really all I've got for you. There's a link to the Patreon in the description. If you've enjoyed this content, a like is always appreciated. So is a comment. And I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video. Thanks a lot for watching, ladies and gents.